Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Jermain Morgan TV. Today I'm joined by none other than Mr. Kerry, Too Smooth.
Man, glad to be here.
Marshall. We're going to do some jamming on this guitar, and we're going to talk about the relationship between the guitar and the bass. So stay tuned. First of all, thank you for being here, dude.
Man, it's a pleasure, man.
It's been cool watching you over the years and just kind of watching your channel grow and see what you're doing in the guitar community. And I must say, I'm a fan, man. I took a few lessons myself trying to improve my guitar skills. So, man, grateful to have you here.
And glad to be here, man.
Yes, sir. So, again, one of the things we want to talk about today is that connection between bass and guitar. In my lessons, and as I'm sure with yours as well, a lot of people want to know, where do I get in, where do I fit in? Let's be honest, most people are looking to figure out where to add the sweet licks and that kind of stuff for the most part. And they want to know how to do it in a way, because I think no one really sets out to try to walk over anybody's toes when they're playing. But as you're learning this stuff, the application part of it can sometimes get lost to where you don't know necessarily where do I add this stuff, especially if you didn't grow up in that environment where you are trading off and, kind of have an idea to do that. So can you explain from your perspective how you approach playing with maybe somebody you never, like me and you, this is our first time playing together today. So how would you approach this situation if we were to start out a groove, knowing kind of where to find your spots and that kind of thing? What would you do?
Yeah, so initially what I'm thinking about is when I'm playing, I want to listen. Like, my ears are my eyes, and I explain that to people all the time. If your ears are not very strong, then you're not going to see where you need to go. Mm-hmm. So I need to listen. If you're establishing a groove, or if I'm establishing a groove, I still want to listen to what you're playing, because it's going to allow me to say, like, when I can pick my spots. If I want to, double a line that you're doing, that could be something that's really solid. And then while I'm doubling that line, I'm kind of counting the spaces, like, okay, 1, 2, 3. Nothing happened right there in that little small window. So I maybe know the next couple passes go around, hey, just throw a little something out there, but not enough that's going to clog up the space, because you want it to still be fluid. So I'm always listening for those kind of spaces. And then when you want to pick your spots and, like, adding the sauce per se, it's like, I liken it to double dutch. And if people don't understand what double dutch or jumping rope, you want to, it's a timing thing, because if you don't time it the right way, your feet are going to get caught in the rope and you're going to fall, you're going to hurt yourself. Same thing with music. If you throw something in at the wrong time, whatever, it's going to jumple everything up. And then number one, people are going to look at you and be like, man, they might be nice, but their timing is off. They don't know when to add certain things, or they're just doing too much and they don't leave any space for anybody else to kind of get in. So with music, you have to, it's a relationship. It's like a song and dance. You really have to allow the next person to jump in as well, because if you're always clogging the space, they're going to feel like, man, I really don't want to play with that person, because as a musician, we all want to get off and, like, have pick our spots, but it's all about just the sensitivity of understanding placement.
Very good, very good. And I totally agree, and I like the fact where you said, my eyes are my ears. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or your ears are your eyes, rather. Yeah. I got it backwards. But I love that concept. And one of the things I've noticed, and I'm sure you have, playing with different musicians, no matter what the band is, most people have patterns. It's like, if you're really listening, certain musicians kind of take their spots somewhere in the same type of area. Like if you're playing a song, like you're saying, you're listening on this pass, okay, that section was open. Chances are, not to say that they're going to do the same thing every single time, but people kind of have the tendency, if you've been playing with them for a little while, they have the tendency to pick their spots over the same type of things. Right. Of course, that varies depending on the situation, depending on the song. But like you said, you really have to be listening to where this person is going to kind of take their spot to make sure you're kind of staying out of the way. One of the things I've always made mention of on this channel, you guys might hear me doing a lot of stuff here on this channel because it's just me playing by myself. But if it's in a band situation, most of the time I'm kind of holding back. Not necessarily holding back, but I'm sitting and listening to what's going on in the entire situation, because I don't want to, get on the keyboard player's toes, get on the guitar player's toes. I want to listen to what's happening and just kind of really build around what they're doing instead of just talking over them in a sense.
Right. To piggyback off what you were saying, it's really important. This is one of the things I learned early in my career. I would just play for the sake of playing. There was no discipline. And when the sense where there's no discipline, you're just playing everything that you want to play. And it's important to understand that how you say patterns. Patterns are the primary root for most music that we listen to nowadays. If you listen to like the bass player or you listen to the guitar player in records, there are patterns. Without those patterns, then you kind of don't know where to go.
Right.
And so early in my career, I was literally all over the place. Like if I felt it, I was just gonna try, just do whatever, and nobody could really figure out what I was doing. So they didn't know like where to place anything that I was doing. So it's really important, like you said, to establish and understand as a guitarist, or specifically since I'm playing guitar, to understand about the importance of patterns. Like if you're going to stick with that movement, like stay with that enough time so that way like we understand what that's going to be, so we know where we can place it. And then when I'm hearing the lick, like finding those patterns, because those patterns are going to make the music lock a whole lot more versus just kind of being so, you don't want a soup sandwich, you know what I'm saying? Stuff just running everywhere, you can't really enjoy it. So it's really important.
I'm trying to think, is there something, I know people are like, well, that sounds good, but can you demonstrate what you mean? So if we were to play a simple, you know, you was doing this thing earlier, maybe let's go G major.
Okay.
Just like a smooth, like, you know,
so I'm listening to that place, I'm like, okay, I want to try to find that, and like while I'm doing that, I'm also want to think about lick. Where I can kind of dance around it to color it up and not just clog up the space.
Yeah. So I want to say this. So what you say, in your opinion, because I know you play in both gospel and R&B space. From your, I know the answer, but for the audience that's listening, what you say from your perspective, the style of music matters how much you can get away with playing.
Of course, because in R&B is a little bit more guitar driven.
Okay.
So like the bass player really lays the foundation, right? Yeah. But as a guitar player, because you get a chance to have a little bit more flex room, so you get to add the really embellishments on the chords, you get to do the hammer-ons, you get to do a lot of stuff. Now, if we're playing gospel is such a unique genre that you have to be really locked in. You can't be too much all over the place because it's going to throw a wrench in everything. Plus, you have organs, you got keys, you got a drummer that's doing stuff, and then a singer. So you really have to be disciplined to be like, sometimes when it comes to gospel, less is more. You locking into that specific groove, just if you stay there, that's gonna make the music feel really good. Because you see people all the time, especially if you group in the South, they're going, "Hey, pocket doc, pocket," you know what I'm saying? They grab that pocket real quick.
They get you with the pocket,
right? So it's really important when you're playing certain genres that you have to respect the genre and understand exactly what it is. If it's R&B, as a guitarist, you got a little bit more flex room. You still have to be disciplined to not overplay it. But in gospel, you really have to be like, if that's your section, you have to nail that every single time, because if you don't nail your section, number one, you'll get passed, but then two, it'll be like, well, why do we have you? Because we can do something else, you know what I mean? So
the question that I get often asked is, how do I know what to play? I got my response that I have for that, because I don't want to hear yours beforehand. If someone was listening to that groove, because that groove can go either way. You can hear that in gospel, you can hear it in R&B or whatever. So how would you know what to play if you started? If we're in church, let's put it in that perspective. How would you know what to play?
Well, I would want to at first ask myself how many people are playing. So if it's just me and the bass player and the drum player, then I know I have a lot more flexibility. But if I have somebody playing keys, I'm going to listen to see how strong they are. If they're a strong keyboard player, then I'm just going to do auxiliary stuff.
Okay.
Like I'm going to enhance embellishment like that. I know a keyboard player's not going to do a hammer on. I'm going to do little subtle stuff like that, like just laying on chords and then passing stuff. Stuff like that will allow me as a guitar player, I got to find my spot. So once you know what your relationship is in playing the groove, then you know how you're supposed to place yourself. If you don't know what your specific role is, then you will be all over the place. Then it'll be like I'm trying to do bass movements, and I'm trying to play other kind of stuff, and it'll be like, oh man, he's just all over the place. So once you understand what your responsibility is, you're an auxiliary instrument. You're like, you can do lines, because if you don't have a horn player, you can do lines, but you're not soloing.
Yeah, that's the difference.
You're playing lines, but you're not soloing. So it's just one of those. I'm not getting over here like, stepping on overdrive, trying to overplay, unless they be like, hey, they point at me and be like, hey, go for whatever.
Yeah.
So it's about like picking out certain lines, playing certain chord passes, and then understanding, again, like I said, allowing your ears to really show you where you can place various things at.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another thing that helps you to kind of prep for those moments is listening to music of whatever style, whatever genre that you're going to be playing in.
Definitely.
Like study the music. You don't really have to ever reinvent the wheel. You can always come up with something that's unique to you. But I think a thing that saves you a lot of time is listening to that style of music.
Definitely.
That type of groove that we were playing, you hear that, like, gospel quartets.
Right.
For sure. Mm-hmm. You hear that kind of thing. And if you listen to enough of that music, you start to kind of get application,
sure,
if you will, because you can get on YouTube or somewhere and learn licks or learn all these different things, but you don't necessarily always get the context as to how this stuff falls.
Definitely.
And one of the things I tell some of my students, well, if you listen to this record, like transcribe or pull this record apart, you'll get the lick and you'll get the application as to where they put it. So now in the groove, it's like,
makes a lot more sense.
I don't know what feel that I should do. What did the guy do on the record?
Right.
And so from that, you start kind of, okay, if this worked over here, maybe I can put it over here.
Exactly.
And it works that kind of way as well. And I think, like you're saying, based on the genre, you kind of like for me as a bass player, if I was going to play this in a more R&B type setting, mm-hmm. I know I don't have a lot of wiggle room.
Right.
It's like pocket. That's
exactly.
it. Don't give me all that extra stuff.
Right.
And I probably wouldn't be playing a 6-string bass either for that situation.
Very
but
true.
In gospel, I think I have a little bit more wiggle room.
For sure.
Because you in church, we call it aggressive. Some people might call it busy, and it depends on the church or it depends on the situation, the culture. I'll say the music culture, mm-hmm. say it that way. Some people want you to be a little bit more aggressive. We'll play this groove again, and I'll show you like just the normal way of playing it, and then I'll show you. I've been in situations where they want, all right, can you be a little bit more aggressive?
Stretch out a little bit.
Stretch out a little bit, but still keep the groove.
Exactly.
So let's try to demonstrate that a little. And I'll play it straight, and then I'll kind of stretch a little bit more.
Okay.
And so, as you can hear, like, obviously in gospel, you get a little bit more, and I'm not going to say exclusively gospel, because I do know cats that move around. Damo is a great example of somebody who's learned he's not the only one, but one of the people that come to mind for me, Damo Farmer, mm-hmm. The ins and outs of how to get around a groove and still be right there in the pocket, And you can do it in both if you kind of learn the art mm-hmm. of how to do it. And I think that, again, comes from pulling records apart, really understanding what they're doing, because when you pull these records apart, in my opinion, you add a lot of this stuff to your vocabulary. Mm-hmm. And you just, over time, that's what I've done. I've listened to different players, I pull different things, and listening to the whole band. I don't always just listen to the bass part of a record.
Very
you
true.
know, I'm listening to the guitar part, I'm listening to the keyboard part, even with chord substitution stuff as a bassist. Listen to keyboard players, certain notes that they use, certain lead-in notes and that kind of stuff. I started adding that to my bass lines, and it helped me to learn like better ways to move around and that kind of thing. So yeah, for me, most people know I play the guitar as well, but my guitar playing improved so much when I started really understanding bass.
Yeah.
Understanding how the root moves. Now, for you, is that something you lean heavily on, like with the leaning on the root, or?
Oh, yeah. So especially when because I teach the number system, so understanding what the roots are, so we know when somebody's calling out the numbers, specifically in church or whatever kind of genre. So I need to know the roots, and also you were saying about the keyboard players. Like really understand how I expanded my chord vocabulary was sitting with a lot of keyboard players and organists and really understanding like, okay, I used to play like some super basic like C major chords. Like, no, we can play major sevens.
Yeah.
We can extend, various chords, whether we're playing a minor. Like just adding those warmths and textures. I'm like, how do we do all that? I would have never understood that had not, sitting with keyboard players and understand, because they voice a lot of things different, especially when you're in church, you got a pad. You got to hold stuff. And I'm like, how are they getting these voicings?
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of keyboard players and I listen to the bass players too. Specifically, if I'm like sitting in with somebody and I need to know where the groove is going to go. I know the bass player is going to kind of like show me a lot better than the keyboard player. The keyboard player will give me like the voicings. The bass player will like lead me down the path where I need to go on this map, so I know exactly where I'm going.
And that really helped me, because I used to, with guitar, back early in the day, it's like it was one of those instruments that I could kind of, back in the day again, I could kind of hide,
right,
fake it. You know what I'm saying? You can kind of pluck around, as long as you add a couple of sweet things here and there. But once I really start honing in on what the root, it's like I can double up on sometimes with my lines of what the bass is doing. Like if we did that,
yeah.
I'm A flat to that little kind of stuff like that right there. So like just it's something as simple as that, just tracing the bass line. I find myself often doing it when I record. Like I'll record bass and then I'll go back and I'll do a pass where I trace the bass with the guitar and then go back and add the other stuff. Yeah. And it added just so much more texture to my playing, because it just was stuff that I wasn't thinking about before. So it just shows how listening to these other instruments and all that kind of stuff, it just further glues the whole situation.
It's all about a relationship. I think a lot of times musicians may not understand the relationship. So we think that, I'm just a guitar player, I'm just only focused on guitar and not really worry about everything else. The more, like you said, you can just listen to other genres and respect what other musicians are doing, like bass players, keys, drum, even the drums, the rhythm from the drums. There's a lot of times I hear drummers playing and I can find that rhythm and just double up with their patterns, what they're doing. It'll just make it lock a whole lot more. So it's really important to understand the relationships that each musician has, and to really glean, not just focus on specifically on your instrument. I mean, that's really important, but also to see what they're doing, because it's really going to enhance you as a musician.
It definitely enhances it. In a live situation, it enhances the moment. I listen to different bands and that kind of thing oftentimes, and I hear so many moments missed. I'm like, you're listening to something, not necessarily on a recording, but like a live session. Everybody is broadcasting live now.
Right.
So you hear these different moments, and like, man, if that bass player or if the guitar player had to stack that line with the keyboard player, that could have been a moment, and they could have just it could have took off. But it comes from, again, not listening and not being sensitive to okay, that's something happening right there. Instead of me running off and doing something, or like, well, let me lock into what's going on. It's been many times that I played in different bands and we did just that very thing. It's like it wasn't part of the song, but maybe the guitar player or somebody start playing a really nice line.
You gotta
we grab that moment and it take off, and we stay there for like 4 or 5 minutes on that same little line. So just being really in tune with the moment, and I think listening. I don't think we're gonna say that enough on this episode, but listening to me is so much key for really having a great gel, really having a great vibe, and really having that cohesive relationship between the bass and the guitar, in my opinion. Is there any thoughts you have or any questions you have, I guess, concerning from the bass perspective?
As a bass player, what do you want from a guitarist? Like, what are you expecting the guitarist to do as far as his job in a band?
It always depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the makeup of the band. Like, if we have an organist, we have a keyboard, main keyboard, auxiliary keyboard, because the last few bands that I play in have been big bands.
Right.
So in that regard, I'm looking a lot of times for that rhythmic stuff.
Okay.
Because if we have a band and you got the keyboards playing chords, the organist is playing chords, it's like you can play chords,
right,
but depending on the song, that might not necessarily
redundant.
Yeah, it's like you're just stacking on top of.
Right.
We got a lot of chords. Give me something else
right,
to kind of spread it out. And I'm always looking. Just say let's dumb it down to if we had a 4-piece band.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for each member of the band to make it sound bigger. So in that, everybody find a part.
Okay.
What's missing? So like you were saying earlier, if there's not an auxiliary player there, and just say if it's a 4-piece, like most churches are,
right,
where they have guitar, bass, drums, and keyboard. So if you have that setup and the keyboard player is holding down the foundation with the chords, we're finding some rhythmic stuff and some color stuff that you can put around it, even with the different types of sounds that you use,
right,
to thicken it up, to make it feel a lot bigger than what it is. So It sounds like there's 7-8 people on the stage.
Exactly.
So I look for a guitar player who's, number one, versatile,
okay,
who can play many roles. So if we need to shift on this song, you can play more chords and
right,
be more full. But just someone who's listening and knows what the song needs and is able to kind of switch hats for whatever that need of that song is, because we might switch in the middle of the song.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? And we just need you to just kind of hold down chords. If the keyboard player goes to aux for some special part, maybe you just need to hold down the chords and rhythm for that section. So it really, for me, I guess I'm just looking for, when I'm putting a band together, that kind of thing, I'm looking for a competent guitarist that knows exactly what to do in the moment.
Right.
For me personally.
That makes a lot of sense. And then also too, understanding, like, hearing that as a guitarist, like a lot of bass players, not just bass players, but music directors or people who in general who are putting bands together, that's what they're looking for. And so as a guitarist, it just kind of helps you to know, like, okay, now I know what my role is, now I know what's expected, so I know what to do, what to focus on, what to work on. So that's one thing I try to teach my students all the time. You want to be fluid, you want to be versatile, you want to make sure that you ask the questions so that you already know what the expectation is, so once you get there on the ground, you know how to deliver.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So one last thing, man, we've been on here, and I'm gonna have to get you back, because it's like way too much information to try to cram into this one get together. But if you had, and I know you had a lot of success in your career, and musicians, most of us hate name dropping and that kind of thing, so I'm not gonna put you on the spot, but just tell us a couple of people that you kind of currently or recently have been working with.
Got you. So, like, I've been very blessed and very fortunate. I got a chance to, like I said, work with Tyrese, work with Lettucey, I've worked with Kiana Lede, I've worked with Melanie Fiona, I've worked with Tori Kelly, I've worked with the Black Eyed Peas, I've worked with
basically everybody.
I've just been very fortunate, and for the reason that you were saying before, the expectation.
Yeah.
I was very versatile, understanding how to listen, know what my role is, and then be very good at it. And the one thing that I've learned about if you want to be successful in the music industry, is about networking. Just like how we're working now, like we've known of each other for a long time, but the fact that we got connected, but it doesn't matter if you got to go out to do whatever. Networking is the biggest currency that I think a lot of musicians forego. Also hanging out, you got to go support other people so they can support you. Yeah. Like, I got so many gigs and so many calls from just hanging out, being in the crowd, going to support somebody else. They're like, yo, what you doing next week? Man, whatever you need me to do. Oh, we need you to fly to such and such. But that comes from you supporting other people. So never forsake the art of networking, because a lot of us are killing, but we don't know the other necessary tools that you got to have, the people skills that you need to have in order to get connected. So
that's good.
Networking is probably the biggest currency. And I tell people a lot of times that they just forsake because they don't know about it.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that, because I don't think I've had anybody to say it here, but networking is the biggest currency. Write that down. Networking because you just never know how things will. I'm in some situations right now from just relationships. You get to walk in certain situations simply because of a good relationship, having a good attitude, being a great person, and just that the follow-ups
Exactly.
Texting somebody, not necessarily looking for something. Hey man, how's it going? How you doing?
Exactly.
And all of a sudden you're back on this person's radar, and it's like, hey, I need some guitar or something. Track. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to send a track to you. Exactly. I've gotten so much work over the years simply by just it was no motive on my part. I was like, not trying to do anything. It's like literally, hey man, how's it going? I'm good, man. Right. I just thought about you the other day. I had this track, and literally, I've gotten so much work from that type of thing, just following up and checking on somebody. But if you had to speak to a musician, and we all get to these places, I think there's this myth that once you get to a certain place in your playing, you never deal with any frustration. You never really deal with any wanting to quit, wanting to give up on this thing. So if you had to talk to somebody who's in that headspace of thinking, man, it ain't worth it, I'm done, what would you say to that person?
I would say, honestly, just take a deep breath. We all get to that point. We all get to that space. It doesn't matter, like, if you've been in the game for a year, 10 years, 20 years, whatever the case is, we all sometimes hit a plateau. Yeah. And sometimes you just got to take a break. If that means you just got to lay it down but not walk away. We can all lay it down and go take a vacation, go get our head in another space. And I think I want to take up being a chef, for a little bit. But you're always going to come back to it because music is so much around you in so many different places. There's going to be something that inspires you. Man, I'm literally watching Netflix, and a song will come on. I'm not even thinking about music. I'm grabbing my phone, Shazam. What is that song? So now I'm inspired. So we all get to different places where we just feel like, when I'm ready to walk away from it, or I'm just frustrated. I'm just saying, just lay it down. Don't walk away from it. Give yourself some time. Breathe. Give yourself some grace, because this is a marathon. I teach my students all the time. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a long journey. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs. So that happens for everybody, highs and lows. Somebody might do you wrong. You might be like, I can't do this no more. If you love it the way that you love it, I know that you love it. It's in there. It's going to spring up again. Something's going to happen to get you inspired again. So just lay it down. Don't walk away from it.
I agree. And just to piggyback off of what he's saying, it is, it's a longer marathon. It's not like we look at this thing and we look at our favorite players and we look at these people, but the reality of it is people aren't where they are today. Is not where they always been. You know what I'm saying? It's like where you see me at today, where you see this guy at today, and his playing. It's like it came. There was years of development, not on screen, that people don't see
at all.
There's years of development that went into this thing. There's years of being disappointed. There's a lot of rejections that happen. There are a lot of people who say they're going to follow up and call you. They don't call you. One of the common things that I've seen is people not getting called for certain gigs in their local area and that kind of thing. Man, what do I do? Because I'm not getting called for certain situations. It's like, well, sometimes people do have their favorites that they want to call. But one of the things that I've learned in my entrepreneurial journey, if you can't find the set of circumstances that you're looking for, then you should create it.
Definitely.
If you can't find the situation you're looking for, because what happens is as you start to create your own situation, you attract the people to you that you actually want. They start looking at your productivity, because most of the times, to add to what you said earlier about what I'm looking for, it's like you're looking for people who produce.
Right.
Not necessarily produce a record and that kind of thing, but I want someone who produces results. If you have the tendency, like online and that kind of thing, see the same type of people getting hired for these different gigs, and man, I see this person everywhere, because there's a perception that this person produces a certain result that I want
every time.
And so if you put yourself in a position where people now know, especially if you're new to the game, no one knows who you are, very few people are going to take a chance on a newbie, because we don't know what type of results you produce.
Exactly.
But if you put yourself in a position, whether that's posting on social media, posting on YouTube, that kind of thing, and we see you consistently producing results, when you're going to start getting some people to notice and to pay attention to you, and then understanding it's God's timing at the end of the day.
Yep.
You don't control when it's all going to take off for you.
Very true.
As much as we want to, you can force it, but when you force it, that success don't last. But if you submit yourself to God's timing and understand it's like, I'm not in full control of this thing is going to happen when it happens. There's really nothing I can do about it. But in the meantime, I work while I wait. I keep my hand to the plow. I keep working on my skills. I keep working on my craft. I keep working on building my relationships. And as I'm working, I'm preparing. So when I get the call, I'm ready.
Exactly.
I'm ready for it. So just to encourage you guys who are watching today, stay stay on the wall. Keep doing what you're doing.
Definitely.
Stay encouraged. It's been an absolute honor to have this dude here.
Such a pleasure, bro.
It's been an honor, man, to have you here. And you guys know it's been a minute since I've done one of these interviews, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this. What's your favorite part about this? And what's the thing that inspired you the most? And let somebody else know about it. Be sure to share this video. Turn on my notifications. If you're not already following Kerry Too Smooth Marshall, go follow him now.
Yeah, so if you want to find me, you can find me on social media. Most things for me are always Kerry Too Smooth, KERRYS, the number 2, SMOOTH. You also can check out Kerry's Camp. KerrysCamp.com is KERRYSKAMP.com. We have lessons specifically on R&B, neo soul, and gospel as well. But yeah, if you reach out to me on social media, I'm gonna hit you back. I'm always respond because people are just like, man, is that really you? Yes, this is really me. I'm always talking, so definitely reach out and let's connect.
And show some love. Let people know what you see in here today. Share this video with somebody, and we will catch you on the next one. All right, take care, guys. I'm out.
All right.
Peace.